Hey people, this is Fernando. Welcome to the channel, and this is gonna be a bit of a different video. I won't rush things, I'll take my time. I won't do one of these 10-minute YouTube format clips. No, this is something that I want to take my time and go into all of those details that some of you guys are asking me to talk about. As most of you know here in the channel, especially if you're a long-time subscriber, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to my channel and at the end of the video you think it's worth it, would be much appreciated. I started with this. My journey through survival preparedness started with the economic collapse of Argentina. I wrote my first book about it, which has over 1,100 reviews in Amazon right now, and this is just about that, going through the economic collapse of my country. So what is it like? How does it feel? What is it that you see? And maybe what can I learn from it? Well, the first thing you can learn from it is this image right there. As you probably caught on already, this is not from Argentina. It says Lake something wine, Minnesota. Is it liquor? I honestly don't know and don't care a whole lot. It's probably from a Black Lives Matter protest, but my point with this image is this is probably something that already happened very close to home, wherever you are, especially in the United States for sure. This is something that you've seen plenty of. And as I go on, you'll see how similar it is to what you see that happened in Argentina. So these things, my point is, can happen at any moment, anywhere, especially right now with the current economic crisis that we're seeing, banking and financial problems pretty much all over the world. Now, in the case of Argentina, this started in many years before 2001, but in December 2001, when the country defaulted on its national debt, everything fell apart. The country had already been struggling with economy that was being eaten up by an exchange rate with the US dollar that was not realistic. The parity of a $1, one Argentine peso. If you earn a dollar, you earn a peso. And if you earned a peso, that was a dollar. You could go to a bank and exchange it for $1 right away. And a lot of people did just that. A lot of people trusted the US dollar a whole lot more than the Argentine peso, and they would have their accounts in US dollars. They deposited dollars and held their savings in the US dollar as a safe haven, as a lot of people do. And the international community deals in US dollars still. That's something little by little changing. But in December 2001, when the country defaulted on its national debt of 132 billion US dollars, everything fell apart. Banks closed their doors because a bank's run started, something that we're fearing right now all over the world, something that already happened in the United States with a few banks already. No bank, no country can survive a bank run, a full-blown bank run, when everyone goes and wants to take out their money. They just shut down their doors. The same banks you have in your country right now, those are the ones that operated in Argentina till this day. As you see, there's a socialist flag over there, something conmemorativa or con something socialist. Partido Trabajadores, the Workers' Socialist Party. And yeah, that is something that you probably also feel related to. Now, the skin color may be a little bit different here, but the ideology, it's the same. The left-wing ideology I try to warn you people so much about, that not only has taken over the left, it has been very successful lately in taking over the right as well, convincing a lot of people that, well, maybe communists and Soviets and Russians and Chinese, they're not all that bad. Maybe a little bit of dictatorship and good old solid conservative Soviet communism ideology is better than the woke crap we have right now. Well, this is what socialists do. And if you look careful enough, you identify a few little different patterns. This woman is not fitting the picture. Probably this guy isn't either. Now, in 2001, covering your face, dude, you were quebracho. You were probably one of these militant, far-left communist groups, terrorist groups operating at a political level, and whenever they see violence, they go to the street and start looting. No matter what happens, you see this in the United States as well. Remember, back when Trump was president, whenever there's a non-commie, non-left-wing politician in office, the first thing the left does is wreak havoc, anarchy, burn, loot. That's what they do when they don't have one of their guys in office. And if they're in office, they shut up the opposition. They beat you to death until you complain no more. But this woman is probably one of the people, middle class, our average Argentines that are just pissed at having their money being stolen. So this is where all of these things start getting mixed up. This is where things get confusing, and they operate so as to bring down whatever government is, and they actually managed to do that. Fernando de la Rua, who is not even here in the picture, is it him? Is this Fernando de la Rua? Anyway, that kind of looks like him, but who knows these days. De la Rua was not was more of a conservative middle ground, one of these softy conservatives that was not conservative enough just to be strong enough. And he resigned in the middle of this madness when anarchy spread. And as the image says there, we saw 5 different presidents. It was in fact in a week, famously 5 presidents in just 1 week in 2001 in Argentina. Do you have any idea how bad things have to get for no politician in the entire country wanting to be the president of the country? Yeah, everyone that, of these 5 guys, it's not the burger joint, no, the 5 guys that were president of Argentina for a week, during a week, sometimes for hours at a time. They just saw the disaster the country was, how everything was hopeless, and they just left. The one that stuck around a little bit longer was Dualde, who was probably a participant in behind the curtain, organizing some of the violence on the street himself. Who knows? But yeah, the Peronist politician would not be above that. But yeah, this is one of the more typical. You see the downtown of Buenos Aires there, Obelisco, and the cops trying to control everything. And yeah, you had everything. You had some of the average guy. Look at this guy with his Walkmans and throwing rocks at, and the guys from probably Quebracho covering their faces and throwing rocks. But then you had these guys. Look at the difference, right? These are the average Argentines. These are the quiet majority. These are the middle class, which is now a definite minority in Argentina. But back in the day, it was a majority. The middle class protesting peacefully, as we usually do, in the banks, wanting their money back. Bank Boston thieves gave us back our dollars. So Bank of Boston that used to operate back then, the same Bank of Boston that you probably saw back in the day in the United States, the same banks are the ones that closed the doors and stole people deposit. We had dollars, we want dollars back. Yes, that's what you want. But as the madness spread, so did looting, rioting, and yeah. This was a very common scene for weeks, for months, years down the road. At any given moment, looting can easily start. Till this day, you're talking about 20 years later. That's how bad things get. That's how much a country changes. In fact, I think that this image, this is from another year. This is from 2013 when the police went on strike on the entire country. Imagine that. The entire police force, or pretty much all of the entire country, going on strike. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And this is your typical people, on her cell phone while looting. Sure, this is probably a few years old already, kicking down doors. And yeah, people. This was another defining moment. The crying Chinese store guy, just probably like the Chinese or Indian dude in your own neighborhood. I think they actually killed this guy. I think he went back and tried to stop people from looting, and they think they beat him or burned him to death. But I'm pretty sure this guy died the day. That's pretty sad. And people will loot. People will loot, and as they get hungrier, they will start doing things like this, like mass. When a truck would have an accident in the middle of the road, the word would get around and people will go with knives and start butchering right there in the road. This happened more than once. This is on a different level. This is the kind of thing that maybe your typical gangster or hood person will not engage in. just wait until people are hungry enough. When people are hungry enough, they will grab a knife and cut whatever has some meat in it and eat it. And this would happen. And I've seen some, there's a lot worse images. I cannot even put them there because if not, YouTube will give me, some bit of a hard time. And yeah, piles of garbage. This is not really garbage. This is some guys earning a living, collecting cardboard for recycling and selling it. That's what a lot of people did. Back in the day, who would grab a horse and start just collecting garbage. And eventually, you didn't even have enough money for a horse. As things got worse, there was no horse. There was just people pushing carts and themselves becoming the beasts of burden for their survival. And this is the kind of like favela-like, we call them villas in Argentina. And this is actually one of the nicer ones. This at least has brick and cement. Some of these structures collapse, kind of like idiocracy, when people just start building any way they can. And some of these people probably know their way around a bucket and a bag of cement, and they put together something. Some of these columns seem to be pretty far stretched out, and this is not structurally sound, most likely. Probably here, maybe not here, and you see a little bit of a bend there in that. Anyway, but people just getting by. I've seen tent towns, huge as far as the eye can see, in landfillings that just got flooded whenever there was a couple drops. Something also that ended up happening was a lack of food. There was shortages, and you were limited in how much food you can get. Rioting did not stop in December 2001. It just went on. And more. This would be, look at some of these animals are still alive. People just kill them and slaughter them right there. This guy with a knife. This is how it looks like when people are desperate for food. This is probably something you're familiar with as well. People living in extreme poverty, just living any way they can. Look at how people start building up like ants. But yeah, oil. Just 2 units per client, very typical. This went on for years. At one time, and you have to think, Argentina produces food for 10 times its own population. How is it? So keep that in mind, you guys in the United States as well. Oh, we produce plenty of food. Yeah, we produce, even this day, plenty of food in Argentina too. Maybe even more so in percentage of the population that you have to feed. That does not keep people from starving to death, even if you produce a lot of food, simply because the economy is not there. The economy is not working. You are limited to 2, bottles of oil because the economy is broken and collapsed. So this shanty towns start spreading, even getting closer to those $500,000 apartment or $1 million apartment or whatever it costs. A nice penthouse in Puerto Madero, around there. Yeah, 2-3 million, whatever is they're willing to pay these days for it. But then, just at walking distance, you have people living in extreme poverty. 2 packs of sugar, oil. Yeah, take note. People eating rats and birds, pigeons. This is a bit of news from when the word got around that people were eating rats, pigeons, dogs, cats, stuff that I've written about in my book. Also, yeah, no more credit cards, just cash or debit card. Debit card for a while was also going. A credit card is the first thing to go because credit card means they cannot withdraw directly from your account. And keep in mind, when the economy is in a shape that money is losing value per minute, you don't have time for credit cards. You either immediately debit from the guy's account and you can just buy back whatever you need right there, or just give me cash. Sorry, I need cash. People eating out of garbage, yeah, till this day. Entire families, hundreds of people go to landfills and dumpsters and try to buy whatever they can because they cannot afford this stuff. And people that do try to stock up as much as they can. They try to buy as much as they can because that money is melting. That money is losing value. So on one hand, you have people starving and eating out of the garbage. And on the other, you have people that are accumulating and stocking up as much as they can and causing even more problems with the supply chain. No cards at all. We don't accept cards, credit cards. And people end up doing this stuff too, going for butter. You butter so as to survive. The butter towns, the butter fairs and whatnot. Clothing is usually something that you see a lot of people try to get something in exchange for a little bit of food. And if you think money-wise, probably the best thing to do is just get the food directly. But if you don't have the money, you just trade whatever you have. This is the face of this stuff, of those numbers that, inflation is 1, 2, 5, 6, 10, 100. What does that mean? How does it translate to? The inflation that you have right now in the United States is the kind of thing that you should be concerned about, because they're not being honest about the real inflation. And they're definitely not being honest about the impact that the already existing inflation will have in the future. 5 years from now, 5 weeks from now, all of those things fall into place like a little Tetris. And it's not all of a sudden. It is slowly. The decay, the wearing of the social fabric, the destruction of the middle class doesn't happen overnight. And then you end up with incidents like this where people just try to defend themselves any way they can. You get yourself, one of these, it's called pistolón, which is like a short barrel shotgun, small caliber, like 32 or 410. Couple barrels. I actually have this exact same gun, I think, and a machete and a knife, anything you have, and you organize with your neighbor. Especially, I think this was during the 2013 strikes. So people getting guns, making their own police because there's no other way. And maybe this is one of the images that hurts the most from Argentina. For me, this was the breaking point. The Barbarita Flores video, a little girl from Tucumán, impoverished province in Argentina. You won't understand, no matter how much I explain it, unless you go through it, unless you see it yourselves. This is something that I translated the entire interaction here, the entire conversation, and it impacted me so much that I put the entire thing when I wrote my book, because for me this was the moment in which I saw that the country had changed forever. When you see someone that is from your own country, they speak in your own, in the same language, and they're from your own, neck of the woods, right? Your own, maybe not. I'm not from Tucumán. I'm from Buenos Aires, which is the capital, but it's still your country. When you see your country that looks like those images that seem so distant, like from impoverished, hungry kids in Africa. Yeah, it sucks, but it's in Africa. It's not home. This is home. This hurts a lot more.
¿Qué comiste a la mañana recién que te vimos que estabas ahí?
Tortilla.
So this is a reporter asking this little girl, Barbarita, I think she was 9 years old, and wearing the typical public school uniform, the white public school uniform. She's asking her, "What did you eat right now that we just saw you?" And she's happy. She says, "We ate tortilla."
¿Y ayer en la noche?
Nada.
And last night, and when she asked the little 9-year-old girl, I think 8 or 9-year-old, what did you eat last night? She already starts crying. She says nothing.
Ahora cuando vas al colegio, ¿te dan comida?
No.
Now that you go to school, do they give you food? And she says no. That's one of the things. In public schools, they're supposed to give food to kids, but as things got worse, even that was not available. And look at her eyes, how sunken in the eye. She's obviously going without food for a long time at this point.
¿Estás triste?
The reporter asked her, are you sad? Yeah, I mean, I guess that she's as nervous as anyone watching this is. I cannot imagine what it's to be right there with a microphone asking a kid that is obviously going hungry. And she says, yes. Are you sad? Yes.
¿Qué pensás? Contame.
The reporter asked her, what do you think? Tell me, talk to me. What is that? What's going through your head? We haven't eaten anything. We have no money.
¿Cuántos años tenés?
Mucho.
How old are you? Age, she says.
Cuando seas grande, ¿qué quieres ser?
Nada.
And that last part is maybe as horrible as this is, and again, unless it's your country, unless it's your people, doesn't hurt as much, I guess. As terrible as everything here is, the thing that pretty much destroys you is when you know, final question from the journalist, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she says nothing. You know, completely hopeless. There's nothing for me in life. I'm 8 years old and I'm starving to death. And this lady asked me what I want to be when I grow up. I don't want to be anything. I want to be nothing. That's what she literally says. What do you want to be when you grow up? Nothing.
Plata.
¿Cuántos años tenés?
Mucho.
Cuando seas grande, ¿qué quieres ser?
Nada.
And the guy there, the fat guy there, that's Jorge Lanata, the reporter from Argentina, who usually does a pretty good job in reporting things how they actually are. And if you're wondering, this girl, now a grown woman with her own kids, she's okay. She's still living in poverty. Figure out, right? Still living in poverty, but she's doing a little bit better. She's not starving to death, but she's the typical, you know, poverty that you see in Argentina. Actually, let me go back there, probably have the image there. So this is, you know, this is her now, Barbarita. This is this woman.
Compañero, no.
So yeah, she's a grown woman right now, still living in poverty, right? But when you go through that, when you see your country become this and become so suffer so much, it changes things forever. At least for me, this was the point in which I said, you know what, I'm not, you know, I made up my mind. Even though it was years after this, I was still living in Argentina because of a number of reasons, because of life, because of, you know, education, you know, then getting married, and maybe you didn't have the opportunity to do things the way you like, and it just kept on getting worse and worse and worse from that point. But this was, for me, this was the breaking point. For me, this was the point in which I saw that we don't have a future here. This is not worth living in anymore. And as much as you love your country and you love it, you love your country no matter what, even if you end up leaving one day, that will not change. It's still there, right? It's still there every single time. But the future is that you have to make the decision. You have to make an objective decision. And things change. Wherever it is that you go, it can be worse, right? Yeah, sure. And things can change in ways that are unexpected or somewhat expected. And things can improve. Argentina may one day become, I mean, it's a massive country. It's one of the largest countries in the world. It has an obscene amount of natural resources. It can produce food for 10 times its own population. You have freaking jungles, glaciers, you have deserts, you have so much. It is maybe one of the more upsetting things that a country that is so fertile, you know, fucking flat land, that is completely, you just have to throw a few seeds and everything grows. And then you have, you know, all sorts of resources like most countries would look at and envy. But you also have a bunch of Argentines that have a certain mentality that they don't want to change. And unfortunately, that is way too much of the population. Okay? But guys, this can happen to you as well. If you think this is not in your future, this is probably happening already and you don't even notice. You don't even know. You have to just look up the news, read about it, maybe stay away a little bit from the mainstream media that tries to trick you, confuse you, and divide you. And you will probably see a lot more of this already wherever it's that you are. Guys, that's going to be all for now. As always, if you want to learn more, you have my channel, you have my books, you know, those over there, available in the links there below. See you next time. Take care.